Sharp angle shot, save, rebounds loose, they score! Keeper Bellows goals in 4 straight games. What a goal for Oliver Wahlstrom, a highlight reel tally, cross-ice pass, Wotherspoon scores! Parker Wotherspoon ties the game. This is a production of the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, proud American Hockey League affiliate of the New York Islanders. Called for the return pass instead, it's Simon Holmstrom. He tracks, shoots, he scores! First in North America for Simon Holmstrom.
I'm head coach Brent Thompson, and this is Sound Tigers Hockey.
Well, we're rolling right along with our new podcast series. It's called Sound Up. This is November the 24th of 2020. I'm Alan Fiering, and thanks for joining us again this week. Sound Tigers forward Tanner Fritz coming up on the podcast. Just a great conversation with Tanner, who's had a very interesting career so far. He's gone through so much, and more than most players ever go through over the entirety of their career. Tanner has played almost 180 American Hockey League games in his career. He's also made his NHL debut with the New York Islanders and has 3 goals over 42 games in the last couple of seasons. So we'll join him coming up. We'll talk about a number of different things, including American Thanksgiving, which is on Thursday. And from everyone at the Bridgeport Sound Tigers and the entire organization, happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully you have some time to spend it with family and friends, whether, unfortunately this year it's tough to do in person, but hopefully in some capacity, whether it is a small gathering in person or, of course, online as well. Well, Tanner is one player we've gotten to know very well ever since he debuted with Bridgeport back in 2016, and the fans know him very well. I asked him about halfway through this podcast whether he even realizes he's in the top 10 all-time in points and assists for the Sound Tigers. He's gotten 129 points in his career at the AHL level, and that's impressive enough, but even more so when you figure that he's missed a lot of time. He only played 4 games last season, had an injury back in October, so this hiatus, if you will, the downtime for him has lasted even longer. Again, the storyline continues to be the same in the AHL. The target date for an upcoming season is February the 5th, and our fingers are crossed that we can start this season then. But in the meantime, we'll try to keep you guys informed and entertained and engaged as best as possible with this podcast series called Sound Up. And without further ado, we'll welcome Tanner to the podcast now. And Tanner, again, just mentioned, for you, it's been even longer than most players having to sit in the stands and watch hockey versus being on the ice and playing. I'm curious, what do you miss most about hockey?
I think for me, it's just being around the guys, It's been such a long time since I've been kind of around, most of the team and stuff like that with my injury last season. But I think that's the biggest thing I've missed over this past season, and this extended layoff that we've had is just being around the guys and having those conversations, those laughs that you get in the locker room and all that stuff on the road, and having the fun like that. It's just, you really, when you take a step back and look at it, you kind of miss all those times, you know what I mean, that you maybe take a little bit for granted. But I think that's probably the biggest thing, and obviously playing hockey, miss that part. But I think for me, just I miss, being around the guys. That's the best part about hockey, is being around in a team environment. So that's definitely the biggest thing.
Well, you mentioned, obviously your injury at the beginning stages of last season. The Sound Tigers as a team haven't played since March 11th. For you, it's been much longer than that. Even when the team is playing, all of last season, you had to sit on the sidelines. What was the hardest part about watching the guys and not being able to be out there and really for an extended period of time?
Yeah, it was definitely tough. It was just kind of, for my injury the year before, I had that blood clot in my hand, which is just bad timing. And then, fresh into a new deal, I was feeling good. And then, having that injury, it just kind of, it was terrible timing, both of them, you know what I mean? Thing about it, I've dealt with, a few injuries in my career, but nothing like to take me out of a season. So I think it was hard to adjust to it. And I think the biggest thing for me that kept me somewhat sane is, we just had a newborn basically at home. So I got to spend a ton of time with him. So, I was pretty grateful for that part of it. And, But I think, the biggest thing, the reason why I play hockey is because I love the game, you know what I mean? I love being around the guys, being in that, like I said, that team environment. So, not being able to be around the guys as much as I wanted, that sucked. But at the same time, I got to spend so much time with my son, which was, not a lot of, first-time dads or dads out there get to spend that much time with them because, their work and all that. So I was pretty grateful for that part. But, yeah, injuries happen, though. It's, every season there's always guys that, get taken out for extended periods of time. So you just got to realize it's part of the business and do what you can do to get back as soon as possible.
Yeah, and we definitely didn't rehearse this. You led into my next question perfectly. I was going to say in hockey, it's tough enough you don't get that family time for a lot of the calendar year, and for you that was kind of a silver lining is having some extra family time. You mentioned your newborn son Emmett, your wife Brandy. How's the family doing?
Yeah, everyone's doing pretty good. We just took that time to spend a little bit more time together, and with this whole COVID stuff. And everything, like the only thing you could really do is spend time with each other. So, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when you look back on it, I think you'll be pretty grateful for the opportunity that I got to spend with my family and, watch my son grow, that first year of life, and to be there, as much as a mother would be, just grateful for that. And everyone's doing well. And, we had a lot of fun throughout the year, and, they kept me in good spirits. So you just really, I don't know, you have to be thankful for that. Like, not many people get that opportunity.
That's one big thing to be thankful for. And again, with American Thanksgiving coming up on Thursday, that's certainly one of the big things for you and your family. And, like a lot of guys, when they come to Bridgeport, you've been sort of with the Islanders organization since 2016 when you made your Sound Tigers debut. And like a lot of guys, they come to Bridgeport, they live here during the season, and they go home after the season's over. But, you were residing in Fairfield. I understand you just bought a house in Milford. The decision to, not necessarily lay a lot of roots yet, but sort of settle down in a sense in Milford, Connecticut. What was the thought process there?
Yeah, we love the area. Like, the last few summers, we've kind of gone back and forth between Canada and the summer before we were in Columbus, because that's where my wife's family's from. So that's where we kind of wanted to have the baby so we could have a little bit of help. But, yeah, we just liked the area, and we just thought, instead of renting all the time and moving place to place, it would just be smart to, finally get our own home. And especially with the kid, it just makes things a little bit easier to just to have your own home, I guess. And you don't have to really worry about moving around and, say in a couple of years I'm not playing here, and after this season I'm not playing here, but we can always rent the place out. And we never really got to spend a full summer here yet, other than this previous summer, but you didn't get to enjoy it as much. But same time, we've heard nothing but good things about the area.
And Milford's a great town to live in, right on the coast. I know a lot of guys are positive about the scenery you get when you look out over the water.
Exactly. And, we're right by the water. So, we spent a lot of time, or as much time as we can, by the water. And, it's great for kids, and stuff like that. So we just thought it would be a good idea to kind of start somewhere and, see where it takes us, I guess.
Well, post-COVID, when this is all over, I'll look for my invitation to the beach party. Because I know you guys are going to have one. Again, you made your Sound Tigers debut back in 2016. That same season, you had played 43 games in the ECHL. You became a full-time AHLer. That all culminates into a shot in the National Hockey League in 2018. There are a good number of guys who start in the ECHL and make their way up. Certainly, it doesn't happen to everybody. The percentage isn't great there. But, for you, again, you started and played a lot in the ECHL that season. What in you said, you know what, I am going to be an NHL player one day? It's not a matter of if, but when.
Yeah, maybe like not my first year, because when I signed my East Coast deal, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna give it a shot, see what happens. And then I got sent I was in the coast for a bit. I wasn't playing. I was getting scratched there for like the first 10 games I never played. And I'm like, I don't even know if this is worth it. And I'm like, all right, I'll just I'll stick it out, see what happens. so I did, and I finally started playing well, and I started getting more opportunity. I'm like, all right, like, maybe this can work up to something next year. I can play in the American League. And then I eventually got called up, and, I played in the American League, played good minutes when I got, up in Bridgeport. And I didn't think, I was going to get that great of an opportunity, but I was lucky enough to do that and kind of just ran with it a bit. And the coaches believed in me, and, we had a good team too. So, and then signed my American League deal, and then, I had another, pretty strong year. And then after that, I was like, my first full year in the American League, I was like, maybe I can play in the NHL. You know what I mean? You start to believe it a little bit more because you're just one step closer, right? So then, you start to believe, and then, you get an opportunity to sign an NHL deal, my first deal. And I was just like, all right, this is maybe going to possibly happen if, everything kind of lines up right. And for me, it did. The following year, I just had a good start to the season, and they had some injuries up top, and I was able to get in a chance. And, maybe didn't have the greatest success the whole time I was up there, but I think I did some good things. And, just to be able to have that opportunity present itself, just through hard work and stuff like that was, something I'll never forget. And to be able to share that with my family, that was just the whole time I was up there. Every NHL opportunity I've had is just try to soak it in.
Fritz, you have such a unique story, and such a good one too, kind of a testament to perseverance. For you go on to play more than 30 games back in 2018-19 with the New York Islanders. You scored your first NHL goal. Everything's looking like it's unbelievable. You seem to have earned a spot there. And then, as we talked about right at the start of the podcast, you have a blood clot in your hands. I mean, help me. I can't even begin to wrap my head around what you were going through at that point in time. Do you have words now as far as that experience when you seem like everything is going so well, and then it all just kind of gets taken away from you?
Yeah, that was tough because, like, I played those 30 games, and then we went in the summer, and I made the team out of camp, and then I played 2 games, and they sent me down, and then got a couple more during, like, middle of the season. Then they called me up at the end of the season there because they had some injuries, and I'm like, all right, like, at that point I was just like, whatever happens, just go play, see what happens, just most of it, just go have fun. You know what I mean? You play the game to have fun. And that's kind of what I did. I played, pretty well those like 3 games. And I just started noticing that in my hand, like my hand was feeling weird. My fingers were like numb. It's just a strange thing. And then, next day I got an ultrasound. He's like, the doctor's like, you got a blood clot in there. I didn't really know what to think about it. I was just like, all right, what's going to happen? And then they flew me back, and they're like, you got to have surgery. Like, you're like minimum 5 months from playing. I'm like, what? It's just something so little, but like the strangest injury, like I remember exactly how it happened. I hit a guy and he fell on top of my hand, but nothing like I was like, oh, this is going to be bad. But
at the time, are you thinking anything of it? When that guy falls in your hand, you're not thinking of this is going to be the end result.
No, like no one ever hears about an injury like that. Usually it's like like a blood clot from some like medical condition or whatever. You know what I mean? Not from like sheer force of like, you know what I mean? Just crazy. It was more like crazy to think that happened. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is kind of unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, that story aside, when you are healthy, you're typically one of the first guys on the ice for practice. You're usually one of the last off of it. Your work ethic is unbelievable. Where does that come from?
Maybe kind of at a younger age, I've put a lot of work into hockey, but like I had maybe not a lot of adversity when I was younger, but for the most part, I was like one of the better kids when I was growing up on the team, like in my hometown. But, I didn't always make the best team and stuff like that. I was cut from, a couple different teams. And then I think that adversity at a young age taught me a lot about, maturity, how much work you actually have to put into the game. You know what I mean? What you put in is what you get out of it, right? So I think I learned that at a young age. And then just also getting an opportunity. Once you get your opportunity, you got to try to just run with it. You know what I mean? they're hard to come by, but, if you can take advantage of that and, put the work in, I just feel like once you put the work in and like in practice, off the ice, all that, those little things, once it comes to the game, it just becomes a little bit easier.
What is your earliest memory of hockey?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I know you're from Canada, so I know a lot of kids, that's one of the first things you kind of pick up, but was that the case for you?
Yeah, for sure. Like I have two older brothers and they played, before me, and my dad was into hockey too, but we weren't like a big like hockey fan. Like it's not like my brothers really wanted to play hockey for the rest of their lives. They were just playing to play because that's what everyone does there. So I grew up playing with them and, doing the pond hockey, and I think that's where a little bit of the hard work comes. Probably started at that young age because, I always wanted to beat my brothers, or, they were always so hard on me. So I just learned to try to work harder than them. Just little things like that you don't think of now or back then, but now you think you're like, maybe that's where that all came from,
I was looking for this segue, and I think I just found it. You're talking about your brothers, your older brothers. One of them, Draper. Correct me if I'm wrong. At one point, I think you had told me that Draper was a professional skateboarder or something along those lines. Not quite excelling in hockey, but still something, that moves pretty quickly, skateboarding. Can you, confirm or deny that?
Yeah, well, he was maybe like goes semi-pro. Like he was in my hometown, he was kind of like a big deal for skateboarding, He just kind of took it up. I don't even know how old he might have been, like 14, 15. He was just skateboarding, and he was sponsored by like the local skateboard shop in town, and he was doing a bunch of skateboard trips and all that. And
so no X Games, but still pretty legit.
Yeah, but he was good. Like I remember because he got me into skateboarding, and I remember going to the skate park with him, and everyone always want to watch him, like, oh, Draper's here, like let's watch him. Which is, pretty cool, like for him to just kind of pick it up on his own like that. I never knew anything about skateboarding, but he got me into it, and I was pretty into it for as long as I could be, you know what I mean?
So that leads me to two follow-up questions off the top of my head. Number one is, so this was a public skate park that you guys would go to, or he would go to. This wasn't like a backyard, custom-built skate park like, some of the, I know like Tony Hawk has an unbelievable setup. Nothing like that.
No, it was nothing like that. We had like a local skate park in town. He'd go there, but most of the time you'd spend a little bit of time there, but most of the time you'd skateboard around town and just try to find anywhere you could skateboard, until you got kicked off. You go skateboard at the bank, restaurants, like weird places like that until they kick you out.
So then the follow-up after that is, if he got you into it a little bit, did you have your own skateboard? And if so, what was the painting underneath of it?
Oh yeah, I had a bunch of skateboards, but I think I used it was called a girl board. It's like Eric Costin. He was like one of my favorite skateboarders. I forget what was at the bottom of it. There were so many good skateboards. My nephew, or like Brandy, my wife, her nephews are into skateboarding right now, and they're like asking me a bunch of questions about it. And I was like going on a website looking at skateboards, and it brought so many good memories of skateboarding. I can't wait to get there at Thanksgiving and hopefully not, break myself trying to skateboard again.
And then when Emmett's a little bit older, then he's got to decide between hockey and skateboarding or possibly something else.
I think he's going to choose hockey.
Well, I would hope so. With you as the father, I'm sure that's going to happen, but you'll have to let us know if it's a little different. We'll take a break here real quick. Time for our stat of the week. We'll be back with more Tanner Fritz after this.
Let me give you a little education, mister.
They've done studies, 60% of the time, it works every time.
Our stat of the week last week kind of revolved around our guest last week. That was Seth Helgeson. And the question was, how many players since the 2010-11 Sound Tigers season have played in every single game within a given year up until now? And the answer to that is 7. 7 different players have played in every game in a given season since the 2010-11 campaign. If you got that answer right, we'll go ahead and send you a Sound Tigers prize pack, a little goodie bag, and thanks for listening and playing along with our trivia question. And the stat of the week, again, is that 7 Sound Tigers have played in every single game within a given season since 2010-11. And now this week, we'll ask a question that kind of revolves around this time frame in team history. We're actually going to go back to a date last week, November the 18th, and we'll zero in on the year 2011. November the 18th of 2011. David Olstrom scored in that game. It was actually a 2-goal performance for him in a Sound Tigers contest against the Connecticut Whale, which now, of course, is the Hartford Wolfpack. He had 2 goals in that game on November the 18th of 2011. The question is, why was that notable? If you know the answer to that, go ahead and shoot us another note on the Facebook or Twitter accounts for the Sound Tigers, and if you get that correct, I'll go ahead and send you a prize pack, a Bridgeport Sound Tigers prize pack and goodie bag. And again, thanks for playing along. We'll answer that next week for our stat of the week. And now back to Tanner Fritz, who has been one of the most notable Sound Tigers players in team history. The reason being, he's got 129 points as a Sound Tiger. That ranks 10th all-time, and he's also tied for 7th all-time in assists. And Tanner, obviously the goal is to become a full-time NHL player. You're still shooting for that in your career. You've gotten there. You've proved that you can do it. Now it's about, getting back there and staying healthy. But, while you're in the AHL, you've put up these impressive numbers. And first off, did you even realize that you're that high up on the list? And the second question is, what do those rankings and those numbers mean to you?
Yeah, I've never really looked into that stuff. I know we have like those stat packs before every game, but I've never really looked into stats,
That's good to know because I work really hard on those.
I know some guys just scout them. Bernie does. Bernie loves that stuff. But, yeah, I never really looked into stats. I've never, it just, kind of happens, you put in the work and you get rewarded for, how hard you work, just simple like that. But, stats have never been a big thing for me, but for some people it's kind of like everything to them. But it's obviously cool to be in the top 10. And, I've played quite a few years here now, but, obviously the dream is to be like you said, a full-time NHLer. And, I'm 29 years old now, and people might say that's old or young, but I feel good now. I feel healthy. So, I think there's still a chance I can play in the NHL. I believe in myself that I can. So, that is the dream. That is the goal. And the end of the day is to, suit up for the Islanders again, or whatever NHL team, will give me a shot, I guess.
Yeah, and it certainly looked like you were comfortable and confident in the games that you did get in the NHL. So certainly, I feel like it's realistic to see you up there yet again. And here in the AHL, as I mentioned, you've been in Bridgeport since 2016 over the parts of the next consecutive seasons after that. And you've had a lot of teammates here with the Sound Tigers. Last week on the podcast, we had Seth Helgeson. Always a good time. Always a lot of good stories as you laugh over there. Is there anyone funnier, and I use that in a very loose sense, funnier as far as a teammate, either now or in the past, than Seth Helgeson?
Yeah, Seth is one of a kind. He's well-liked by, everyone, including the staff, the younger, older guys. Everyone likes Seth. But
I shouldn't say maybe funnier. Maybe more of a jokester is what I was going for. Is there anyone more of a jokester on the team?
Yeah, I would say one of my probably the favorite guy I've ever played with in Bridgeport was Pat Cullity, because I played with him in Missouri. I started with him in Missouri, and he's one of the funniest guys, like on and off the ice. On the ice he was straight business, but you could goof around with him. You get under your skin a little bit in practice, stuff like that, because he was so serious. But then off the ice he was whatever. I forget how old he was at the time, maybe 29, 30. He was getting a little bit older, but I was maybe 25. But, there'd be parts where he would be acting like, the youngest guy on the team, like just a goof. Everyone loved being around him. Just one of those guys that has that energy around him where everyone wants to be around him and stuff like that. But, yeah, he was a goof, and you get some good laughs off of him.
Yeah, Pat Cullity, one of the former Sound Tigers defensemen. I know fans of the team, especially the diehards, will remember him very well. Do you still keep in touch with him?
I've talked to him a few times in the last year. I know he has a I don't know how old his little baby girl is, but yeah, he's got a little kid now. So I forget where he's working. I don't know what he might be in like the medical sales stuff. But yeah, just a handful of times maybe in the last couple of years. But yeah, he was always a great teammate.
I remember in Lehigh Valley a few years ago, we had him on as the guest analyst game. He wasn't he wasn't in, so that was a good time. That's still one of my top 5 favorite games that I've called, is just having him alongside, not only for the analysis but also just kind of the humor and the lightheartedness of it too. And of course, Pat Cullity went to University of Vermont. Tanner, of course, you 4-year player at Ohio State University, a Buckeye. I know we've got a lot of Buckeye fans in the area and even on our staff as well. What do you remember about college? You played 4 years. You were a captain there. You had some pretty good teams. What do you remember about your years as a Buckeye?
So many good memories there. From the hockey to off ice. That was my first experience leaving home. Leaving kind of a small town and going to this the States for the first time, and basically living in a huge city compared to where I grew up at. So I was a little bit shocked when I first got there, but I had so many great memories. I still have so many good friends from my 4 years there, and it's obviously where I met my wife. So we go back there quite a bit. I lived there in the summers. It is such a great city. I think it's an underrated city, but that's getting a little bit more notice, like just in the last couple of years. Like, it's a beautiful city. It's a great city to raise a family and stuff like that. But there's too many good memories, just to pick one.
Well, in preparing for this interview, I was, of course, looking at the Ohio State website and looking at your profile from many years ago. And one thing that caught there are many things that caught my eye, but one thing was at the top of the page, it said that your favorite player growing up was Joe Sakic.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious as to what about him made you kind of an idol of his.
Yeah, well, he was my favorite team growing up was the Avalanche. So then I would always watch them, and I remember watching Sakic, and his shot. He had like the best shot ever. He had such a good release. I just remember watching him, and he was the captain, obviously, and such a good captain. And they were winning Stanley Cups, but I think for me, just watching him, how good he was, both ends of the ice, but he was always like one of the top guys in the league. So, and they were my favorite team. So just kind of grew to, liking him a lot. And obviously he's a lefty, but I'm a righty, but he had such a good shot. I just remembered my dad, he would always just, try to slow down like Sakic shot and show me how to shoot like that and stuff like that. But one of the best releases in the game.
Well, he obviously was a scorer. You're a scorer. If there's a goalie in the NHL, wherever, past or present, that you could score a goal on, who would it be?
Probably Patrick Waugh. Yeah, he was one of my favorite goalies too growing up, and he's such a hothead too. Which always if a guy like me scored, I'd probably piss him off,
But it just makes the story that much better. So
yeah.
All right, fair enough. All right, well, enough of my questions. I've asked you plenty myself. So we usually end these podcasts with a mailbag type segment because we like to get our fans involved as well. And so I picked out 4 questions for you from fans around the area here in Connecticut. And we're going to start, because it is the week of American Thanksgiving, we're going to start with Gary in New Haven, who submitted a question at the end of last week. And it's simple. What are you doing for Thanksgiving? I know you're Canadian, but you've come to the States. You've lived here a long time now. Do you have any plans for Thursday?
Yeah, I'm actually going to make my way to Ohio. That's where my wife's family's from, just outside of Cleveland. Just going to be a small get-together, but her sister, Brandy's, my wife's sister, just had a baby that's he's just over a month old now, so going to go meet him for the first time, and we're all just going to spend the day and a couple days together and kind of hunker down at home and, be safe and just enjoy family time, good food. Thanksgiving's an important time for a lot of people. And I think especially now with all this craziness going on, got to be smart about it. But, to me, being around family at this kind of time is the biggest thing. So.
And that's exactly what Brent Thompson said a few weeks ago on the podcast. We had him on 2 weeks ago, and he said the same thing. One of the biggest blessing in disguises right now, although you're not playing hockey, is the family time. So you certainly have to take advantage of that. We'll move on to Robert in Monroe, Connecticut, not too far down the road. And he wants to know simply, during this craziness, the quarantine, if you will, what's an average day in the life of Tanner Fritz? And again, I'm sure a lot of it revolves around the kiddo.
Yeah, so usually get up around 6:37. That's when usually he gets up. We get up, hang out with him, have breakfast with him, make him food. Then it's just kind of do whatever he wants to do, play with him, let him rip around the house in his walker and stuff like that. And then he has a nap, and then me and my wife usually work out, do something. We got a Peloton at the very start of COVID. So that kind of kept us busy, which was nice. And then, he gets up from his nap, and then we, basically everything, revolves around him. We just spend time with him, go for walks when it's nice out, get outside, just try to enjoy, some of the nice weather before winter comes. But, yeah, and then usually he goes to bed around like 7, and then we get a little time together, me and my wife, and have dinner and, watch a couple shows. We're into Animal Kingdom, just watching that. So, and then it's usually bed pretty early, 9:30, 10, and, to start all over again. But, like we talked about earlier, it's just, you never know if you're going to get this much time again with your family. So you got to just take advantage of it.
And minus the kid, that sounds a heck of a lot like my day too, especially the ending, going to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Very, very.
There's nothing else to do though. Like.
Exactly, yeah. Moving along to Xavier in Bridgeport. He's curious because he watched your first NHL game. He wants to know what you remember about that first experience when you finally got to the top of the mountain. Yeah,
that was obviously a great experience for myself. Not just for myself, but my family too. I was fortunate enough to have, my brother and my dad made it to the game. They took like a red eye. They flew basically all day, all night to make it to the game. So that was pretty cool to share the experience with them. And obviously my wife was there. So yeah, the day went by too fast. I wish I could relive that day, all the time, but it was just such a great experience and such a rewarding experience, all the work you put into it. And you finally get to, live out your childhood dream of playing in the NHL. So just overall great experience and, one I'll never forget.
And I imagine the personal goal at the very, very, very tip top of the mountain is to win the Stanley Cup. Our last question comes from Monica in Trumbull. And, of course, that's the easy answer, so we're going to take hockey out of the picture. But, because I know you're a fan of many different sports, if you could win one of these, which one would it be? The World Series, a Super Bowl, an NBA Finals, or the Masters?
Masters.
Without hesitation.
Without hesitation. Oh, yeah. I think that I love golf, obviously. I love, baseball, football, everything. But I think what's so special about golf, it's yourself, yourself against everyone else. You and your caddy, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, everything's on you. So to be able to win a tournament like that, such a historic tournament, I get chills every time I watch the tournament, see guys get the green jacket and all that. I think that'd be the best tournament. Or best cup, I guess you could to win.
Sure. Well, Tanner, I really appreciate your time. This was awesome. Great podcast. Hope the fans enjoyed as much as I did. Just talking with you here. Typically on these segments, I like to give my guests the final word. Is there anything you want to say as we head out and into Thanksgiving at the end of the week?
Yeah, just thanks for having me, obviously, and I hope everyone has a very nice Thanksgiving, a safe Thanksgiving. Everyone needs to stay safe, be smart out there, but enjoy your time with your family. And hopefully soon enough we can see fans at the rink and playing the game we love, watching the game we love.
Good stuff, Fritzy. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.